The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom. Tonight's episode, The Go-Go Boys, the inside story of Canon Films, starring Menahem, Golan, and Yoram, Globus.
Meet Israeli duo Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus. They have a dream of taking over Hollywood with their company Canon Films. And what kind of movies do they make? Some critics call them schlock films, but actually they're just plain low-budget movies.
Did you ever make a $30 million movie?
Never. I don't know what to do with 30 millions. I can make 30 movies, maybe.
We thought that it will conquer the world.
You knew there was going to be guns, you knew there was going to be chicks, you knew there was nudity, there was violence. Canon was synonymous with awesome in the 80s.
They can leave the theater feeling a little bit better than when they went into the theater because the good guy does come out on top.
I think you're going to be surprised how anxious the networks would be to do business with you.
And he says to me in French, "Vous êtes Monsieur Golan?" And he rubbed my head.
Karin, bring me Bloodsport. I'm gonna make you a movie star.
They were experts at financing it, selling it, and then making it. They were selling before and then making after.
Les panneaux d'affichage qui envahissaient la croisette, c'était Canon qui débarquait.
Pour moi, faire des films, c'est une grande histoire d'amour.
To date, they have not made what I would say is a really fine film.
You have to make hits in order to survive.
Just didn't happen for them.
They call us Go-Go Boys. Go-Go means go-go.
Hey, Sleazy C. This is the man I want to talk to. Sleazy, I've got 49 movies I want to make with you. How about you do this with me, okay? And we'll make sure that I get all the profits, and it will be biggest success. It will be bigger than the Rocky franchise. It will be bigger than the Alien franchise. It will be bigger than Ishtar. You know Ishtar, yeah? Yeah? It's good, yeah?
And if I'm Yoram in this equation, where the fuck do I get all the money?
Who cares? It'll just happen.
What's up, everybody? It is, well, first of all, technically, in the scheme of things, when it comes to Podcasting After Dark, proper episodes minus TV Obscura, this is our 100th episode of Podcasting After Dark, proper. Oh my gosh. Hey, I have got a great idea. No, hold on, Menahem. You can just chill out for a little bit. We'll come back to you later. It's our 100th episode. I'm so stoked about that. But in the spirit of shaking things up, we are doing things differently this month. We're not breaking down a movie proper. We are doing what we did last year. It's become our annual thing. It's our annual obscure documentary series. Well, what would you call it, Corey?
Maybe augmentary?
Ooh, I like that. Augmented episodes of Podcasting After Dark. How about that? It's me, Sweet Sexy Z, Tiny T, joining me as always, my beautiful, bodacious co-host, Corey Stevenson, Sleazy C. Happy 100th episode, dude.
Oh, thanks, buddy. And yeah, like you said, it's out there with the TV Obscuras and then the weird little solo stuff that I've done and stuff like that. It's like we're way past it. We're almost like almost 200 episodes. But in our internal like numbering system that you guys will never see and probably never matters, this is a big monumental event for me and Zach, because this is our triple digit proper reviews and everything. And boy, oh boy, I mean, did you ever think when we started numbering our episodes, and everything, did you ever think we were gonna get to 100, dude?
I did, because, I'm a dreamer. I dream of things, and who cares what the execution is, if you bankrupt something or not? Who cares? If you have a dream, you make it happen, and that's what we did. Sorry, Menahem, I'm the one talking. Oh, no. I took over Podcasting After Dark. I bought it from you.
Yeah, seriously.
With what money, Yoram? Yoram, where's the money?
Yoram, we need our money, Yoram.
No, dude, I never thought, well, I did think that, we'd be doing this for some time to come, and we continue to steamroll and chugga along. The coal in the engine is burning hot, and there's plenty of it. We're not going anywhere. We continue to produce the best version of our show that we can on a regular basis, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Dude, me too, my friend. And I'm really starting to love August because I thought last year was great. I very much enjoyed our 2 documentaries. And then when I'm sitting here watching both of these today and taking notes and everything, I'm just like, man, I'd love a good movie documentary or a good retrospective. I love this kind of stuff. And I also thought it was kind of interesting that the parallels. So last year, yours was a documentary called My Best Fiend, and it was Werner Herzog and
Klaus Kinski.
And it was not just one movie, it was kind of a full career, or just, them two together, which is interesting because the Go-Go Boys, the one you're discussing, is sort of similar. And then mine was basically just a look at one movie in particular. And again, last year with Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, the longest title in existence. And now next week, or next episode, because we're going to be recording these documentaries back to back, we'll just announce it now because by this point you guys have all watched Wrap Up After Dark and know what's coming. And we're going to be discussing, or I'm going to be leading the charge for Jodorowsky's Dune. So it's another singular movie thing. And I kind of find it interesting how maybe it's some kind of an insight into what you and I sort of like about things. Because my favorite documentaries are the ones on aliens, something that's just singular. But it seems to me yours are kind of more nebulous. Is that correct, or is this just a chance occurrence that you're doing the Go-Go Boys, and you did My Best Fiend last time?
A little bit of both. I do love umbrella documentaries about a particular genre. Case in point, the In Search of Ultimate Action movies, or whatever it's called, In Search of Horror.
Darkness,
I love those
sci-fi
retrospective kind of things. But I do love a good overall making of kind of doc, like the Richard Stanley one is, but that's like a descent into madness. And dare I say, the Jodorowsky one is very similar.
Yes.
It's really wild. I mean, I chose the one we're doing tonight, the Go-Go Boys, the inside story of Canon films, kind of based on the fact that we've reviewed so many Canon movies on our show, and I love Canon films that we've covered. Well, we'll get to what we've covered towards the tail end of this episode, because at the tail end of this episode, we've got something special, kind of like a top 5, but we'll get to that later. A few years ago, another Canon documentary came out called Electric Boogaloo, The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films. Now, I believe that one actually was distributed first, because I think the Go-Go Boys didn't come out. It was a little delayed because MVD produced it, put it out. MVD, retro films or whatever, Rewind, that label, which has the cool slip cover with the poster inside, blah, blah, blah.
And has a great logo on the movie. It's like a VHS logo and everything. It's really awesome.
Really cool. They put a little bit more time into the production, I think, with the interviews and such. So that one, even though it says on IMDb that it came out the same year, I feel like it came out after.
Yeah, I mean, we watched Electric Boogaloo when it came out, so probably 2014. I don't remember this being even an option. I remember this came out on Blu-ray only like a couple years ago, or like very recently. Now, we loved the Electric Boogaloo one. We had a great time with it, but watching this one now, I don't recall if the Electric Boogaloo one actually interviewed Menahem or Yoram. I think they had archival footage, but this one I think is actually, I think it's more of a sanctioned version by them. I mean, if you know any better, let me know.
I believe so. So really quickly, the deciding factor between which documentary of these two to choose I chose the Go-Go Boys because though I love Electric Boogaloo, we both do, it's more of a, highlight reel of the Canon films. And there are interviews with a plethora of people, including, from Star Trek: The Next Generation, she played the psychic, or the, I think her name is.
Yeah, Dana Troy's character.
Yeah, I believe so. She was in one of the Death Wish movies and gives a really pretty, messed up version of her experiences with Menahem. So, so that version being more of like a highlight reel, which I love. Again, I'll stress that, and I think everyone should go check that out. It's a perfect companion piece to this, because then you can see more kind of details and other people's perspectives of canon. This one is very similar to My Best Fiend. It's an intimate portrait of two individuals, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, who, are practically brothers. They're related and through they're cousins or something like that.
Yeah, they're first cousins. Yeah.
But the thing is, it is similar in that My Best Fiend sense, because it shows this passionate compulsion to do something, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing, and it works for one particular person, just like the other documentary My Best Fiend, and it didn't work for the other person. So it actually was surprising, because I'm not gonna lie, I watched this for the first time the other night. I'd had it sitting in my DVD shelf for a year or so, and then finally watched it because of our episode. Because we're going to talk about it tonight. And I was really surprised at the direction that the documentary went in. I expected it to be more of not exploitive, but more of a hit piece, more like 80s, all about the 80s, but it's not. It's a true biography of these two men.
It is, but, to the point of, Electric Boogaloo might have some more alternate perspectives on things. This one does seem to be very much, I don't know if it's controlled, but there's a scene later on when the interviewers are asking Menahem about some of his failures, and he doesn't want to talk about them. And, he's like, no, I won't talk about that. I erased that from my mind. And I wonder if, maybe some of the bad stuff that maybe other people mentioned in Electric Boogaloo, things that might have not been the easiest for them, he might have just erased them from his mind. But I do think that whether it was by design or just by his lack of wanting to talk about it, this does seem like a very positive piece on Menahem and Yoram.
I think so. Yeah. If you go into, the comments on IMDb, or if you go on, especially on the reviews on, I think on Amazon, there were some of the user reviews where they're like, well, it was good, but they didn't talk about the shady stuff they did. Well, yeah, there's not a lot of shady stuff that's mentioned in this at all. However, I think you get a pretty good picture as to why they're not working together now, and Menahem is not working on movies in the United States anymore.
Yeah.
And so really quickly, the overall synopsis of this film, according to IMDb, The Go-Go Boys, The Inside Story of Canon Films, is a documentary about two Israeli-born cousins, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, who, in pursuit of the American dream, turned the Hollywood power structure upside down, producing over 300 films and becoming the most powerful independent film company in the world. Up close and personal, the film examines the complex relationship between two contradictory personalities whose combined force fueled their success and eventual collapse. I think it's a pretty decent, accurate description of what this doc is about.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, no, that is a good one. And it's this documentary does span quite a bit of period of time. I do want to point out, you said, they made over 300 movies together. My God, 46 of which were made in just the year 1986, which also, too, at the end of the documentary, and guys and gals, we're not going to be breaking this down, scene by scene or anything. So we hope that you actually watch this, and that this is a discussion that you listen to after you've seen it, as a sort of an extension of the documentary. But it's interesting. They made so many, of these movies together, by the end of the movie, Menahem and Yoram were actually like sort of together and everything, and you can see that they still sort of talk, but obviously they're not as close. But Yoram does mention, he's like, why didn't we and they're watching their movies that they created together at the end of it, and they're enjoying them, and they're like, and he's like, why didn't we slow down and actually enjoy the process and actually enjoy the fruits of our labor? But I've worked with somebody who is that sort of creative energy like Menahem is, but it's also that there is no rest. Rest is death. And Menahem has this personality trait that I've seen in other people where his default state is go, 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 go. And to not go is to die. And I know other artists that are like that, and I think you get burned out very quickly. And I think there's a reason Menahem, I think he was older anyways, but he looks a lot older than Yoram does. And I think Yoram didn't have that same burning the candle at both ends sort of thing going on with him.
No, I agree. And I think, the reason they explained in the doc why, and I think I appreciate what you said about this kind of being a companion piece to the doc itself. This is not available streaming anywhere, first of all. So supporting small businesses, supporting physical media, go out and buy the Blu-ray if you like biographies of filmmakers, because that's exactly what this is. So go out and buy it from MVD. You can go buy it on their website. Third-party distributors like Amazon, I think, sell it as well. But you have to seek out the physical copy because it's nowhere to be found digitally, which actually is really refreshing.
Yeah,
to be honest with you. But you had mentioned that they put out all those movies in '86. They also lost $90 million between 85 and 86. Yeah. So this was a company, the doc starts out, it actually takes a really good chunk of time. Of the 90-minute doc, there's broken into maybe quarters, I'd say.
Yeah.
Or maybe thirds, or not
because it goes thirds, because it goes in order. It starts in Tel Aviv, then it goes to LA, and then it talks about the post LA era. So I'd say thirds.
Yeah. The first third half is really focuses on their time in Tel Aviv, Israel, when they both were growing up. How Menahem was he describes himself as this thin boy who made primitive movies from photos, and he would take photos of his mother and other things, and he would make movies out of it. He was making movies when he was a child.
And to that point, it opens with him talking about if you want to make movies, you basically have to, and I'm paraphrasing it, you basically have to not do anything else. Not want to do anything else. You have to give yourself completely to the movies, and they do show that comes at a detriment. Even Menahem and Yoram talk about that detriment, and the detriment is that they were very much not present during their kids growing up, and I think in even both of their wives, and Canon Films was everything to them. But that's how you make 46 movies in 1 year. But going back to the discussion about the first third of the documentary, I felt like I got more out of that than I did the Electric Boogaloo one, because I don't remember them really diving. They obviously mentioned they came from Israel and Tel Aviv and all this kind of stuff, but I liked seeing chunks of the movies that they were working on back then, because we think of Canon as these bombastic movies, but they started by trying to make quote unquote, respectable films and whatnot. And I also found it interesting that their one big breakout was Lemon Popsicle, which was kind of a sort of a Last American Virgin, sex teen romp comedy, but in Israel. And it's not shocking that being their biggest success over there, it's also what brought them to the States, that they would try to replicate that with Last American Virgin. I wish the documentary discussed more about Last American Virgin, because it almost didn't even get discussed. They showed some shots of it, but they almost didn't even mention it.
Well, if you want to know more about Last American Virgin, you can listen to our interview with Diane Franklin.
Yep.
And also on $2 late fee, which they're two separate interviews that we did with Diane Franklin. Go back in the archives and you can check those out, because Last American Virgin is actually a remake of Lemon Popsicle, the same director and I believe same writer, but definitely the same director. So that was their foray oh, let's just take this thing that worked for us, because they talk about the success of Lemon Popsicle, but they went ahead and pretty much straight up did that.
Wow. I guess I kind of maybe forgot about that piece of information or whatever, but that's fascinating, especially since I just watched Last American Virgin for the first time about 2 or 3 months ago. My wife and I watched it, and we both walked away from that film absolutely despising it. Not at all what I was expecting personally. I thought I was going to like it, but this isn't a critique on that movie. I'm just going to say I was surprised at the lack of mention of Last American Virgin in The Go-Go Boys.
So do I, because I think it was a pretty decent success when it first came out, at least on home video. And they really didn't talk about how successful they were on home video. All they did was talk about the theater stuff. This doc is one-sided in one sense. However, just the simple line that Corey brought up earlier, where the interviewer is asking Menahem about his failures, and Menahem does not want to talk about them. Just putting that line in there, showing his emotion behind that, is very telling. And it kind of gives you I think it gives you a pretty good insight into how he treated this business, or lack thereof, because I don't think he really viewed it as a business initially. He's so caught up in the art and the idea of being a mogul and making these. He never looked at it from a numbers perspective, where his cousin Yoram comes into play. And Yoram, as a kid, is selling tickets. He's making money as like a 6-year-old, which is really cute too, to think about, that this little kid from way back when, you listen to, parents ask their kids all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? And oftentimes kids say the astronaut, police officer, whatever, firefighter, movie star. Unfortunately now it's like YouTuber, and you want to be like, that was not a slap. That was just a pretend. And, but it's very rare that you hear someone say, I want to do this as a child, and then they grow up and they become that thing.
Yes. No, and I do want to talk really quick about the whole him not wanting to discuss his failures. And I think that kind of goes back to, I think it was the Apple, where he talked about like that was like their first big bomb in the US. And Menahem was so distraught by it. Like he was literally considering, suicide,
Yes.
How much of that was actually true. I kind of believe him, because I do think he's a passionate artist. And Yoram is the one that sort of quote unquote, talked him off the ledge and was like, there will be more movies. And when, you find that out at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end of the movies when he's talking about, oh, I don't want to talk about my failures. And I'm like, oh, I think that Apple event, that thing that happened in his life when the Apple was a giant bomb, I think that's insight into Menahem. I think he, like you said, he didn't view this as a business. He viewed this as an artistic playground for him. I do think that Menahem has an artist's soul. Like he's a sensitive artist's soul. And I think that's why it affected him so much. And that's also why, it kind of goes to like, we're creatives. Please guys, leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, but I kind of sometimes don't read them, because I also don't want to know either, because I'm an artist. If I see something I don't want to I'm going to internalize it, that's the thing. And so I did feel kind of like connected to Menahem and like in his reaction to the failure of the Apple.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that, because I get where he's coming from. It's very similar to the Jodorowsky documentary that we'll talk about in the next episode, where these artists don't understand necessarily that, unfortunately, the filmmaking industry is strictly a business at this point. And maybe it always has been, but if you want to be successful to the lengths that Menahem wanted to be, he had to view it from a more realistic business perspective versus like his cousin did. He didn't, and ultimately that led to his downfall. And they detail the whole thing. You pointed out he mentioned like dreaming about making the movie, and I wrote down the quote. He said, And I want to do it two different ways. I want to do it from his perspective, and then I want to read it as The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and see which one's more inspiring.
Okay.
Dream about the movie. Steal your movie. Make your hunt. Take your money and make a movie.
Right? That's what he says, pretty much directly like that. And then American Dream would be like,
dream about that movie, baby. Steal your money. Make your hunt. Take your money. Make a movie.
I would listen to The American Dream.
My hand is touching your hand through the TV, baby.
So I think that, he says that, and he says that in the scene, and I just have to point it out because we've interviewed so many people on our show and $2 late fee. He's sitting at this interview. His shirt's like barely tucked in. One of his shoes is untied. He like looks very disheveled when he's supposed to be in this professional setting. His cousin is interviewed in the same area.
Yoram looks great.
He's taking super good care of himself. Menahem looks like, he just rolled out of bed. Every shot they show from archival footage is him like kind of laying down or like slumped over very lazily. And he's not that guy. He's not a lazy person because he's a go-getter. But it's just there's a level of sadness there.
Yeah.
When you go to someone's house and they've got their home filled with crap, like just stuff, boxes and trash and like things they don't need. And you feel the heaviness of like, man, this person needs some help, I get that sense from him looking at him, because his eyes are welled up throughout the whole thing, talking about the good times and the bad times. When he reflects on the failures that he had as a father and as a husband, he'll kind of mention that he was not a good parent because he was so driven, like you mentioned. But you get this level of sadness because he never reached that thing that he wanted. He never grabbed the ring that he ultimately was trying to get. Yoram, on the other hand, and it's very balanced, I think, in this way too. I think the doc does a really good job of showing both men equally, because they both had a 50-50 part in this.
Yeah.
Yoram had failures too that were not necessarily his fault.
MGM.
One in particular, MGM debacle. But he's doing really well for himself and always did. He gave Menahem he gave Menahem a golden ring, a golden parachute when Cannon folded.
Yeah, when they folded,
and that got pissed away too, I think.
Well, and the thing is, when they folded, Yoram was talking about when he left essentially. He gave Menahem X amount of dollars for his half. Okay. Then he also didn't have to, but he secured him like a $35,000 or $35 million line of credit for another move. He's like, look, I'm not going to leave you in a lurch. I'm going to actually, I was like, that was a class act right there. This documentary made me love both these guys. I do enjoy Menahem. I like his energy. I like his artistic perspective and just making movies at just any chance you get whatsoever. And he's passionate about movies. But I also really liked Yoram because he was realistic. He knew what he was doing. And, he had dreams and goals and he tried to accomplish them. And I think he did a great job, and he seems to bounce back from hard times because he just knows how to, do stuff and everything. He knows how to find money, which is just crazy. But you can definitely tell that post them together, Menahem always needed Yoram more than Yoram ever needed Menahem.
Yes, I agree. I feel like Menahem, he pretty much says it too. He wanted to create a legacy for himself. He wanted to make a lot of movies for a little bit amount of money versus one movie for a lot of money. He wanted to have this catalog to the point where he wanted to take over the world. Did he have a good business sense? I think he did. He just needed to listen more, and he didn't listen. He was not good at listening to other people. He was more about doing and telling.
Yeah, yes, he needed a break, and Yoram, they mentioned at one point, Yoram tried to get him to just take a 6-month vacation, just relax, and you have to do that. As an artist, as a creative, you also need to stop creating for a little bit to try to get some ideas and everything. But, like, also, too, out of their massive catalog, they never had, like, that huge hit. And, they even mention, we should have slowed down and put more money into Superman 4. Like that could have been their giant hit. But no, everything, it was spread too thin. Everything was spread way too thin. You can't make 46 movies in 1 year and have pretty much any of them be great. They're all going to be at a certain level, and that's what Cannon became known for. Even that one guy who was like the head of what was it, Universal or some?
Tom Pollock. Tom
Oh
Pollock,
my God,
whose eyes, man, I'm sorry. And to anybody who's ever suffered that or had that, his eyes go in two different directions, and you're like, which eye do I look at? And the fact that this guy was the head of a studio, he was an exec, making decisions and having meetings with people. Oofa. Where do you look?
Dude, and they are literally going in opposite directions. But he did say at one point that when he was the head of Universal, they made 20 movies a year, and that's Universal. So Cannon making 46 movies in 1 year is insane. But at the same time, they did bust the studio system. They came in there and were like, we're going to do our own studio system. And they did for a second. They created something that was pretty amazing, and that was just, I think, through them together, and this idea, and they don't get into it too much, but they do address it. This business model that they created at Cannes Film Festival, where they would sell a poster before they had the movie. Whereas Cannes is usually for selling movies that are already made, and they were selling movies based on posters, and then. So that's one aspect that kind of made them different. They would have this idea and they would sell that idea before the movie was made. And another thing they would do is like, you want Death Wish 4? Well, you're going to have to take this other movie too. And so we know, Death Wish 4 is going to make you a shit ton of money. Well, this one's going to make you a shit ton of money also. I mean, it won't. But like, that's what they did. They would sell them as package deals. And I mean, I don't know if that was, they don't tell you if that was Yoram's idea or if Menahem's idea. I'm sure it was Yoram's. But they did have a spice, man. They had a spice to them that I think also too. I mean, it's a boys club. It's in Hollywood and everything. It's an elite club. I think they came in there and shook things up, and I think people weren't too thrilled about that.
No, I agree, and I'm a firm conspiracy theory believer in studios screwing people over, and so that the things don't get changed. And I'm sure, and he was a rebel. He brought a different perspective, and I'm sure he was loathed and detested. And I'm sure there were backdoor meetings to try to find ways to get him out. Not every kind of loudmouth, bombastic person is a jerk, like someone who used to run our country, but this, he and Menahem on the Electric Boogaloo documentary, you can get the other side of his reputation from people in the business. I think Alex Winter was actually interviewed in that too, because I think he was in one of the Exterminator movies, maybe the first one. But based on this documentary, and again, if you want to see highlights of many of these movies, go watch the Electric Boogaloo one, because this doesn't do that. This shows little clips here and there, but it's more like interviewing people and showing the two Go-Go Boys. You brought up the posters, that he would sell things with posters. He also had there's a shot of marquees of like upcoming movies that Cannon's releasing, and one of them had Al Pacino on it, but Al Pacino was never even signed to that movie, or movies that never got made, but they would say, well, this is who's going to be in it, and this is the name of the movie, and this is how it's going to, this is the plot line of it. Okay, now give me money, let's make this movie. That's how they would sell movies back then. They don't do that now. Full Moon Entertainment, I think, kind of took that book and ran with it for a little bit, where Charles Band would go in and sell movies to get money from Blockbuster so he could, finance a film that would go directly to Blockbuster. Full Moon was putting out a movie a month for a while. And that was unheard of. So to do 46 in 1 year is insane. And it shows, you know, at the end of this, I brought it up earlier, but at the end of this episode, we'll be bringing up our top 5 canon films. And every single one of them that I made a list of that I love, they're all flawed in some way. And I've always said this about canon movies. They're movies, like, cult-wise, are held in a high echelon, certain films, you know? But all of them have something about them that is like, well, I would have fixed that, or I would have trimmed that. They never feel polished. Canon movies never feel polished. As good as they are, they never feel polished.
Because you can't polish 46 movies in 1 year. No. And real quick, guys and gals, before I forget, go listen to our interview with Catherine Mary Stewart, because we do talk to her about the Apple. They do spend a lot of time, or probably the most amount of time, it's still not a lot, but probably the most amount of time on one singular movie, and that's Electric Boogaloo. I'm sorry. And that's Breakin'.
Breakin', yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
Because, I mean, I guess it makes sense, because it was their first hit, you know, to begin with. And, you know, and I said, they didn't have any hits. Yes, they had a lot of movies that made back their budget, but a studio normally operates, they're expecting like 8 movies to bomb and 2 of them to be like mega hits. Like, so when you watch it, when you go to the, you know, summer of 94 or whatever year Jurassic Park came out, you know, yeah. Jurassic Park for the studio, that was the one that funded every other movie that bombed that studio came out that year. So yeah, there's a lot of movies that Canon put out that, yes, did make their budget back. Yes, made like money on VHS sales and you know, rentals and all this kind of stuff. But they never had like their Jurassic Park. They never had their giant blockbuster movie that could really infuse some cash into the system.
No, because what they do is they'd make a bunch of money on something and then turn around and like do 3 or 4 more projects that would fail. So they lose a bunch of money, no matter how much money they made off that big one, you know. And it's cool that they profile Breakin'. They interviewed JCVD for a minute, and you realize this is why this guy, when he does interviews, they're very short because
he's very expressive. There's
very
a lot
expressive.
His shorts were very short, and he was moving around a lot. And I was like, are we gonna see his balls?
We almost did.
I know.
You know, they interviewed Michael Dudikoff, obviously from the American Ninja movies. He was one of their stars, and it's a somewhat sad moment. It's a sad moment when he brings up the fact that as the studio's going down, he went down with it because he was like their guy. He rode or died with them, you know. They interview John Voight before he went off to Cuckoo Town. And there was a time, ladies and gentlemen, before John Voight was a kook, that he was an Academy Award winning nominated actor for so many movies. And when he did the movie Runaway Train for Canon with Eric Roberts and Rebecca De Mornay, that was considered a huge hit for them.
Yeah. Because he won Golden Globe for Best Actor in it.
Yeah, it was heralded for its critical success. I don't know if it was necessarily a financial success. And Corey's right. They did make a lot of money on these movies. But again, they would turn around and blow all that money on something else. What I love about them, one of the many things that I love, I think specifically about Menahem, is he made movies for an audience. He didn't make it necessary. He did want to make movies for that prestige and award. But the majority of his films he made to make an audience laugh, cry, you know, get shocked, et cetera, et cetera. That's why he made movies. He loved the idea of what cinema was. So when he invests all his money into movie theaters, that makes total sense because video tapes and video stores is not where a wide audience is enjoying their movies. And I get why he loved that, you know. Cinema Paradiso is all about that little kid who sees the movies with the audience and everyone's going crazy and he's like, I want to make movies. That's exactly what happened to Menahem.
And he's a showman. I think he's a consummate showman. And I think that Yeah, he wanted the prestige and everything, but I think at the end of the day, all he ever wanted to do was just make movies, period. And I liked that interview that they showed where, you know, the guy was asking about all the money, you know, he's lost, or he actually was talking about, that was the one talking about, you know, more of a critic. He's not really a critic, darling. And, you know, even Siskel and Ebert are like, you know, this is trash, yada, yada, yada. But he's like, but I like how Menahem, and he always seems to roll with any critiques, except for when the director was asking him, you know, on this documentary. But he says, like, I'm not doing it for the critics. I'm doing it for the audience. I'm doing it for the people who are paying the tickets, and they are paying tickets. They're buying it. So I'm doing something right. But I do know, I'm sure deep down inside, he would also like to be viewed as a legitimate filmmaker and not just, you know, a cult movie guy for midnight cinemas. But to, you know, just to let you guys know sort of also the difference between this and Electric Boogaloo, like Zach mentions, Electric Boogaloo has a lot more like scenes and stuff from canon movies. This has a lot of like interviews, like archival interviews. This has a lot of like home video from Cannes and them making deals. And I was like, that's really cool. I like seeing that behind the scenes stuff a lot.
Yeah, there's a really funny moment where they talk about how they had their meetings during lunch. They were always eating. 24/7, but they got the job done. And there's a scene where Aaron Spelling, you know, the guy who created 90210, for example,
and created Tori Spelling.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's sitting on a couch with a paper plate with his lunch in a group of guys having a business meeting, and it's all being filmed. It's so funny. We've interviewed people on our show who've met or who've dealt with Menahem, and specifically Menahem, not necessarily Yoram. And they always describe him the same way, you know, this very bombastic, and, you know, the way JCVD tells his story about the first time that he met Menahem and how he got his gig with Bloodsport. Bloodsport wouldn't have happened if JCVD hadn't hustled.
Yeah.
And also, you know, Menahem looked at him and didn't see anything in him. This is an old story. It's been told a million times, but he gave him Bloodsport because it's like that was lying around basically. But yeah, I love that footage too. I love the footage of like at Cannes or the big party that they had when they opened up their Canon Pictures building. You know, they spent all this money on getting and like 60 Minutes did a story on them. Yeah. They're showing footage from the 60 Minutes episode. But you know, as this documentary goes on, and they talk about the critics were so critical to a film back in the day. Nowadays, not so much. People are going to go to movies now. For example, you know, let's say Meg 2 or whatever, it gets a 14% in Rotten Tomatoes. People are going to see it whether it got 14% or whether they got an A+. Who cares?
Zach's just bringing this up because Zach's going to go see it because Zach wants to see Meg 2.
Yeah, I do. And you know, and you know why?
I do too. I don't give a shit when it gets rated.
I don't care anymore. Yeah. Like there was a time I didn't care about reviewers back in the day. I read the review.
I've never cared, dude. I've never cared about what someone else thinks of a movie. I've never wanted someone to tell me what they think of a movie, yet that's now our entire job, is to tell other people what we think of movies. But I say watch every movie for yourself and don't listen to what anyone says.
I think a big difference between us and someone like Rex Reed or whatever, because that guy can take a flying dump. He, first of all, they were getting paid off by the studios. Some of them were, not all of them.
Yeah.
But and some of them were failed filmmakers who never made it, and they were just bitter. We're the first ones to say, it doesn't matter if we like it or not. If you like it, that's all that matters, right? But the reviewers were so critical back in the 80s, well, I guess up until like the 90s and early 2000s, because that can make or break a movie. Nowadays, not so much. I don't think it necessarily matters. But I think Menahem was like, he didn't care about those people. He was also so much in denial about certain things. There were times when he was called out on a talk show for a certain amount of money that he lost. And he's like, no, we are a multi-million-dollar business. And I'm like, really? Are you?
Oh, yeah. He mentioned we were like incorrectly, the company was incorrectly evaluated or something. But I think that goes back to him. I think the moment of vulnerability was the Apple failing. That's what's really going on inside of him. Him being distraught by that, I think, is an accurate insight into Menahem. I think when he says, "Oh, the company was different value," I think that's all just and he even says it. He even says it when the director's like, "Let's talk about the failures," and he goes, "You can talk about the failures. I can't." And now he doesn't directly say it, but this is like, it's kind of like magical thinking. The idea is, if you practice magic, it's not only important that you believe what you're doing, you also, quote unquote, derive power from other people believing that you're doing. And I understand what he says, like, I can't say that. You can talk about the failures if you want. I can't. And I get it. And he doesn't guarantee, he doesn't even think he's thinking in magical practices, but that is. And I do believe he's a magician. Like, he's a creative, like, creativity just flows through him. So I totally get that. I understand that he kind of has to spin things a certain way. Again, you can't make 46 movies in 1 year and have any doubt about what you're doing. You have to have nothing but pure fucking confidence and gusto. And that is what 99% of Menahem is, gusto and confidence. Hey everybody, Corey here. I just want to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim.
And I'm Dean.
And we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits two challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV, and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.
And now, back to the show.
I'd like to list off some of those movies that came out in 86 and see if you recognize them or not. Okay? I'll list all the movies that came out in 86.
Yeah.
According to Wikipedia's list of theatrical releases, they were released by Canon. So they were not necessarily produced by Canon, but they were released by Canon. I think that's what that means when it says 46. Like, they were buying other movies and putting them out, right?
I think so, yeah. It has to be. I mean, they can't possibly produce that many movies.
Yeah, and then when we get to our top 5, we're going to legit say our top 5 Canon movies where the Canon logo pops up, right?
Yeah.
But in 86, Canon helped release a movie called Teresa, Dirty War. Haven't heard either of those.
No.
Manhattan Project.
Yes.
Have.
Yeah.
Basic Training.
Maybe if I saw the cover.
Right. And again, I'm stressing Canon helped release these. They didn't necessarily produce them. Highlander. Thunder Run.
No.
Maybe I haven't heard of that. The Hitcher, obviously.
Yeah.
Never Too Young to Die. Yes. Robotech the movie.
What?
Yep. I mean, they helped release these films. They released Robotech the movie, I think probably stateside. De Commandant, but there was 3 Ks in that. De KKK Commandant.
Awesome.
La Dernière Image. Nope. Repentance. Nope. So those are from 86. So those movies were like released by Canon in 86. But then these are movies that Canon produced 86 movies, okay? Really quick. Starting in January of 86. Camorra, A Story of Streets, Women and Crime. Ever heard of that?
Nope.
Delta Force.
Yep.
Of course. Link.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I actually know the cover for that, too, yeah.
I think Elizabeth Shue is in that, actually.
Yeah.
The Naked Cage.
Oh, that's the women in prison movie, right?
Yes. Field of Honor.
No.
America 3000.
I know the cover for it.
POW, The Escape.
I know the cover for that too.
Murphy's Law.
That I think just came out. Someone just put it out on Blu-ray, maybe MVD. Might have actually been 4K, but yeah, that's with what's her name from Witchboard? Tata for Now.
Yes, it is, and Roadhouse,
Yes.
and of course Charles Bronson, who
Yes.
Michael Dudikoff is a big fan of, by the way. He
Yeah,
says that
that's his
quite a
hero. Old Charlie.
Pirates.
Yeah.
Roman Polanski's Pirates.
Yes, that I remember having the VHS at the video store and staring at it. And who is that? Bob Hoskins on the cover with his big beard or something?
No, it's like Walter Matthau or something like that.
But I remember it. Yeah, I never saw it.
Zero desire to see that film. I think
Yeah.
Christopher Atkins might be in that movie from Blue Lagoon.
Okay.
Okay, so that's May. Dangerously Close. That's an Albert Pune film.
Okay.
It's a good movie if anyone's never seen it. I highly recommend you check that out. Cobra.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Cobra?
Yeah.
If not, check out $2 Late Fees, month-long tribute to Cobra. Invaders from Mars.
Yes, a movie that I actually really like.
Me too. Lightning the White Stallion.
No, never heard of it.
I feel like that might have been, yeah. I remember seeing the box cover for that. Detective School Dropouts.
Okay.
We're only in August, by the way. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
Yes. Yep.
Othello.
Yeah.
Avenging Force.
Yep. I've seen that.
Michael Dudikoff. That was supposed to be, I think, the sequel to Delta Force.
Okay. Okay.
I think. 52 Pickup.
I've never seen it, but I know the cover, and it's the one with Roy Scheider on the cover.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You definitely should check that out. I believe, and here's the thing about Avenging Force, which I think it's the sequel to Delta Force, or it was a continuation. It's something connected to one of the franchises. But Delta Force came out earlier that year, February, right? Castaway. I don't think that is the one with Madonna in it.
No, I don't think so
one
either.
With Tom Hanks.
But also to your point about Delta Force, if that was a sequel, Avenging Force, if it's a sequel to Delta Force, Breakin', like they made that in 12 weeks. Like they were shopping it 12 weeks after they started shooting it. Like that's insane.
That's insane. And I'm going to correct myself because it just came to me. It was actually the sequel to Invasion USA.
Okay, got it. All right.
Which came out, I think, the year before. But
Okay.
still. Firewalker.
Yes, I know. That's Louis Gossett Jr. and Chuck Norris, right?
Yes. And Duet for One.
Okay.
So that's directed by Tom Kapinski, who's interviewed also in this documentary, who seems very sad and a little bitter about his relationship with Hollywood. But all those movies that I just listed came out in '86 under the Canon banner. Those are Canon proper films.
Right. And how many of those were blockbusters or were just massive success? I'd say
I'm guessing maybe 2 of those.
And
maybe.
And we're referring to a very tame version of the term blockbuster, because I think that means something bigger in late 70s,
I mean, decent box office, Cobra and Delta Force, I would say, out of those 2. And that's only because one is Chuck Norris and the other one's Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
So, they're churning out all these movies and no one's going to that. Well, I mean, some people, but they're not making their money back. And so it's the story that goes on through this whole documentary. Ultimately, at the end, though, I just want to say it's really sad. I'm just going to spoil this because they're interviewed throughout, Yoram and Menahem, currently in 2014. And then they're brought together at the end.
Yeah.
And it is such a Boogie Nights moment where, it's the scene where Dirk Diggler goes and sees Jack and wants to restart his career. And Jack just gives him Dirk has fallen on bad times and Jack's there to give him a hug. and it's like Menahem and Yoram, and Yoram is Burt Reynolds' character Jack.
Yeah.
Giving Menahem a hug. Like, I'm just here for you, man. There's nothing I can do for you at this stage of your life, but I'm just here to be your friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
There was some warmth at the end that I did enjoy. And, and to look at the two of them together, like sort of over the course of their life, and especially where they sort of ended up in the success. And you can even just see it in like their office sizes and everything, Yoram doesn't need Menahem to succeed, but Menahem absolutely needs Yoram to succeed, or even just survive, even just create. He needs Yoram because you need money. It doesn't matter what, anyone says, you need money to make movies. It just has to happen. And especially since Menahem has, he has movies that he wants to make that are big concepts and everything. But Yoram definitely, you can tell, doesn't need Menahem at this point. I hope that I don't even know. Actually, I don't even know if Menahem's still alive at this point. Because this movie was made 10 years ago. Like, holy crap! Like, it's already 10 years old, and I didn't even feel like it.
Menahem died in the same year.
Okay, that's what I thought.
2014 at the age of 85.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling he already passed. Although it's weird because the movie didn't have any kind of dedicated to him or anything at the end, so he must have passed after the movie was struck and done and everything.
Which is kind of weird because I feel like they could have released it after the fact, but
yeah, or put up some sort of in memoriam or to our to Menahem, or something like that.
But Yoram is 80 years old, so
Menahem was older.
Yoram will be 80 this year.
Okay.
Yeah, Menahem was born. Yoram was born in 43. Menahem was born in 29. He died at the age of 85.
Oh,
so
wow.
he would have been, 83 or 93 at this point at this year if he was still alive.
Yeah, no, dude, and like you said, this documentary, it does a good job, and it does focus on the two of them, as it should, because it's called the Go-Go Boys, and that is like what they were referred to as, especially like on the cover of Newsweek. Like, that's how big they got.
I mean, Newsweek back then was huge.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. And just like, and he even mentions, Menahem even says, like, at the time, like, who's going to be on the cover of Newsweek? It's like politicians. It's like the president of the United States. And then it's us. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, and I do believe that they shook things up. They came into town like a whirlwind. And, and they weren't insiders, you know what I mean? They're outsiders coming in. And I do believe that probably ruffled some feathers. Now, there's no mention of that from anybody else talking about it. The only other head was that one guy, Pollock, with fucking catfish with his two eyes looking in two different directions. He was the only one that seemed like another studio head that sort of talked about them. But he never really said he did say 46 movies in 1 year. That's too many. You can't possibly have quality in that. But he also didn't really say what the scuttlebutt was internally around, because all those fucking heads, they're all meeting up at their ritzy clubs and everything, and they had discussions about who is this fucking Menahem and Yoram coming in and think they can fucking create a new studio system,
Right.
like in the early 20s and 30s, like they were trying to create an old school studio system. Like, and I forget this fact, I'm always sort of shocked by this. There were Canon movie theaters outside the US. They also had a huge portion of their income came from actually owning movie theaters that would just show their movies. And that's how the old studio system used to be. Like, MGM would own their theaters, and those theaters would only show MGM movies and stuff. And then that changed. And if,
famously, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did because I just did. Avco Embassy famously had a movie theater on Wilshire here for decades. That was just like that. It was one of the last ones I remember seeing, driving up and down Wilshire, going, "Oh, that's cool. That theater's named after a studio. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that."
Yeah, and there's a good podcast out there that kind of documents the old studio system movies. I think it's We Must Remember This, or you Must Remember This. What the fuck's that thing called? Shit. She's like a film historian. You guys can find it. I'm sorry for whoever's driving off the road right now screaming at me.
God damn it! Well,
you can find it. It's a great film historian podcast, and she talks a lot about the studio system. If you want to know about that, but that was like that studio system was, they got rid of that, and I think like the 40s or something, or the 50s, and now Menahem and Yoram are trying to bring it back, and for a minute, it's kind of successful. Like they're kind of doing things right. So I have to imagine that ruffled people's feathers.
Oh yeah, because they're putting their movies in the theaters, right? Making their money. But it didn't last for very long. And what is all the reasoning behind that? It's not really discussed. But there's enough of it where you go, these guys just got too big for Menahem is really ultimately the reson why they went downhill.
Yeah.
Not Yoram.
It's no, not at all Yoram.
And
Yoram,
then
if anything, if Menahem listened to Yoram more and slowed down, I think they would have made better decisions, or I think Menahem would have made better decisions. But I do have to respect Yoram, because it seems like up until they quote unquote got the divorce, because that's what they sort of refer to it as.
Yeah.
Yoram backed him all the time. Like, even if he, I got the sense that Yoram would advise, but then if Menahem, he would still back Menahem's play. And that worked for a while, but it doesn't seem like it's a recipe for longevity though.
Totally agree. I want to point out too that in the Electric Boogaloo documentary, it was Marina Sirtis, is in the documentary from Star Trek.
That's right.
She's the one who brings up the not so happy moment with Menahem. That doc, by the way, is filled with interviews with a lot of people that we love, including Diane Franklin, Lucinda Dickey, Toby Hooper, Robert Forrester, just a plethora, Franco Nero. And so it's just a different perspective of the Go-Go Boys.
Yeah.
The Go-Go Boys in particular, though, like, if it wasn't for these guys, and Eli Roth, as much as I'm not a huge fan of him as a filmmaker, he did sum up kind of, I think, our feelings, or most people's feelings about the Go-Go Boys, when he said that, every 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, got to see the stuff they wanted to see on screen, and they loved it, and it kind of hurt his feelings when people would bash these movies, because he loved these movies that they put out, and still does,
and even mentions, Eli Roth even mentions, him and Tarantino. Like, Tarantino, owns, a 35mm print of Ninja 3: The Domination. And he's like, yo, come over here and let's watch this. And he's like, we watched it in his theater, so we know that was the New Beverly. But it's like, and even Eli Roth brings it up, but it's like, this is one of the greatest directors in the world, and in Quentin Tarantino. And obviously that's debatable, but... And he is a powerful director and a very artistic one. And he loves canon movies. And I think that, I think us of a certain age, we grew up with canon movies. And I love a lot of them. A lot of them I haven't seen. But a lot of them that I have seen, if I've seen it, I pretty much freaking love it, Except for Last American Virgin.
And Cyborg.
And Cyborg.
And Cyborg. Now, I really quickly, I was going to bash Eli Roth, but I won't bash Eli Roth. Of course, Eli Roth has to bring up Quentin Tarantino, because that's who Eli Roth is. He's always got to bring up Quentin Tarantino when, do you know I'm friends with Quentin Tarantino?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I get it. But Tarantino, if you go on any interview, just type in Tarantino canon films, he is always talking about his love of canon movies. So, I fully respect Tarantino as a filmmaker. I think he's an amazing auteur. I think he's one of the greatest of all time. And I think his depth of knowledge is fantastic. And his perspective is the similar perspective that we have, where it's like these movies are polished, or are not polished, but they have a charm about them. There's a twinkle in these movies where you're like, the people making this movie loved the idea, at least, of this movie. Whether at the end of the day the execution was what they expected, it's almost not important at that point.
Do you think Death Proof is the most canon Tarantino film?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or I guess, what would you consider the most canon Tarantino film?
Well, because it's funny, because I think Death Proof is his worst movie that he made. If I had to rank them, I would probably put Death Proof towards the bottom.
Okay.
Unfortunately, overall, there's parts of Death Proof Death Proof.
Death Proof.
Death Proof. There's parts of Death Proof that I love. I just think it's 30. Well, if it was a canon movie, it'd be 90 minutes long versus like 2 hours. Is what I think it is. Man, I think Reservoir Dogs is his canon movie.
Okay.
You know, and I think it's a mixture between over the top and it's an art house film too, like, which is what canon was. They were trying to do both.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a marriage between the two. But you said it so perfectly. You're like, you know, the movies that Canon made that you've seen that you love, right? With the exception of a couple. We should get into this. What are your top 5? Why don't we go back and forth?
Yeah.
In order, right?
Yeah.
We did rank them numerically,
Yes.
correct? Like,
yes.
okay.
5. Yeah.
So,
you want to start with number 5 and then go down to 1, and I'll start.
Yeah. So yeah, Corey, why don't you start, and why don't you tell me what your number 5 all-time canon movie is?
I do want to give an honorable mention because as I was looking through the Wikipedia, you know, the listing everything, and it was nice because they broke it down like canon, post-canon, and everything. I didn't realize that show DC Follies was produced by Canon.
Wow. Okay. Are we allowed one honorable mention then?
Yeah. You give your honor. Well, first of all, did you ever watch DC Follies with Fred Willard?
I did.
Me too.
I loved that show back in the day.
Yeah, me too. I did too.
Of course we did.
Yeah, so that's my honorable mention is DC Follies.
That's your honorable mention. Okay, fine. Mine was tough. Mine was really tough. My honorable mention is going to be Over the Top. It just got pushed out of the top 5. I met Big Rick Zumwalt. Actually, you can go to my Instagram page and see a photo of me arm wrestling Big Rick Zumwalt when I was like 11.
Yeah, I know.
And I have autographed pictures from when it came out on VHS. I remember seeing it in the theater. I just love that movie so much.
Was he nice in person?
He was the nicest guy. And, you know, they talk about the story of why Over the Top didn't do well in the documentary. And I had no problem with it. I loved it. And because I think I related a little bit to the main kid and my relationship with my dad. So, yeah, Over the Top is not my honorable mention.
Okay. And by the way, yeah, Over the Top was probably the second movie they spent the most time with, but it's still not a lot. I really wish they had maybe talked to Lucinda Dickey for Break-In and stuff like that, but no, they really did. Like you said, the only people we really got were Dudikoff. We got a little bit of Billy Drago for like a second.
Yeah, rest in peace. I know.
Yeah,
what a bummer.
rips.
I would have loved to see more with him.
Yeah, I know.
But
me
yeah,
too.
It's funny when you've got the star of your movie coming out and promoting it by saying, this is not what you guys expected. This is not the movie you think it's going to be.
Right.
That's not a good sign.
No, that's never a good sign. So number 5 is a movie that I haven't seen in a while, but I loved as a kid, also very scared as a kid. Written by Dan O'Bannon and directed by Tobe Hooper, I loved Invaders from Mars. That's my number 5.
Creepy as hell.
Yeah.
That's a great movie. Very creepy. And again, these movies are not perfect. There's like a slow patch in it, I think, midway through.
Yeah.
But man, it is so creepy. When his dad turns into an alien.
Yeah, dude.
Oofa. Yeah.
All right, okay. What is your number 5?
My number 5 will come as no surprise to you. Invasion USA.
Well, that's perfect because that's my number 4.
Oh, nice. I mean, I remember I could have gone to see I was supposed to see Summer Rental because it was PG-13. And my friend at the time talked me into sneaking in to go see Invasion USA at the Meridian Quad, at the Meridian Quad in San Jose, California, Meridian Quad 6. Sneaking into Invasion USA to go see that, and it changed my life.
Dude, that movie will forever hold a place in my heart for when Rostov fucking pushes knocks that lady's head into the cocaine thing and shoots Billy Drago and shoots his dick off. Shoots his fucking dick off. And as Billy Drago's like dying there. He then just tosses that lady out the window who's in agony. She's going to die anyways because of her the snort thing is in her nose. I mean, what an incredible scene. I truly believe that is one of my favorite 45 seconds of movie ever made.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is classic canon from start to finish.
Yeah. So that's my number 4, Invasion USA. By the way, 3 movies we've covered on Pad are in my top 5 of canon. So number 4 is Invasion USA. What is your number 4?
That's really funny. Well, my number 4 is Treasure of the Four Crowns.
Didn't make mine, but I had a suspicion it was going to make yours.
When it came out on Kino Blu-ray last year, I was like, the gods have spoken. Listen to the breakdown, guys. You know how much I love this movie, so goes without saying.
I mean, dude,
Treasure of the Four Condors.
And don't get me wrong,
crowns.
it's condoms. It's in my top 10 canon. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved it. It's the most canon movie that we've covered, and it is a wild ride. And I will always give mad props to Kino for putting the Blu-ray out with the anamorphic 3D, the blue and red 3D, and up converted normal 3D. I'm like, that is way too much effort to put into that movie right there, you know?
Totally agree. And it was one of those movies that I've held on to in my psyche since childhood, and it did not let me down.
No, it was fun as hell, man. It was fun as hell.
Hell yeah.
My number 3 is a movie that I broke down, and that is with the beautiful Lucinda Dickey, Ninja 3, The Domination. I think it's not my number 1, but for me, and the thing is, like, I know my number 1 is a canon movie, and the same for number 2, but this is the movie that I think of when I think of canon and the canon logo and what canon movies mean. Ninja 3, The Domination, I think is the perfect example of a canon movie because it's fun, it's awesome, but it makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Agreed. And it's such a wild ride, and I'm so glad that you brought it to the table because it was I feel like we're doing like a wrap up. And if you want more wrap up After Dark, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark for wrap up, Carpenter Factor, and more. Yeah, it's so much fun. All
right, buddy. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is Masters of the Universe.
Okay, that was probably my number 6. I did the honorable mention, the DC Follies, just because I was shocked by it. Dude, I know that Masters of the Universe gets a bad rap, but I kind of loved it as a kid, and I am kind of chomping at the bit to rewatch it, to be honest with you.
You should. I have it on Blu-ray. I think Warner Brothers put out a $6.99 Blu-ray. It's great to watch again. It's super nostalgic. It's when you just take into account all that they could do with their limitations, and what they did do. It's fun. And Frank Langella is one of the best villains ever. He's a great Skeletor, and they have the toys out now that look just like them. So you can own, finally. I mean, that's all I wanted as a kid was a Dolph Lundgren looking He-Man. He personifies He-Man in that film. He's good. It's good. It's a fun movie. It totally holds up. All the people that bash it just don't get the fact that it's like they did their best, you know? They did their best. That's canon for you. They did their best.
I always loved the fact that Frank Langella, like Skeletor, was one of his favorite characters he's ever played. He never bashed that movie. He only gave it praise. And I'm like, you're like a quote unquote real actor. And like, you're like, you know, people were like, I remember that. Like, people would ask him, like, what was your favorite role? He's like, Skeletor. I fucking love that movie. I'm like, that's cool, man. You're cool.
Yeah, we interviewed Chelsea Field last year when we were discussing Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, and she talked about her love of Tila. She loved making that movie. She had a good experience on it.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid, man, what was that one bad guy, snake guy that had like the armor? The only one that Skeletor killed because they failed, you know? And I was like, and he was my favorite one. And as a kid, when I saw that happen, I immediately was like, oh, so it's kind of like Boba Fett. My favorite one dies. And I realized that I was a jinx to any character that I loved was going to die.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll make sure I don't mention who my favorite characters are for any franchises. If a movie comes out, we're gonna go see it.
Exactly.
What's your number 2? Are we into the 2s now?
We are, and I kind of have a feeling that my number 2 is your number 1, and I'm talking about Mortal Kombat the movie, aka Bloodsport.
Yeah, it's my number 1.
I figured.
It's got to be my number 1. It's got to be.
Yeah, I figured, and we'll talk about your number 2 in a second. But you join in the conversation on this one here, dude. I mean, I love that movie as a kid, and I know that I know that you and Jeff always kind of loved it more than me, but so I guess that statement doesn't really matter to anyone outside of you, me, and Jeff. But I did watch that movie a shit ton as a kid. I loved it. Bloodsport is fucking Mortal Kombat the movie. I love it. I love the idea. It's such a simple premise, but it works so well. And then, Bolo Young, fucking JCVD, Ogre, from Revenge of the Nerds.
Ray Jackson. Yep.
It's just a fun movie from beginning to end.
It is. The soundtrack is phenomenal. Stan Bush is on there too. Kumite. It's like, it's got every box. The fact that they slap a based on a true story on there, even though it's far from it, anything from it. I actually did an interview with one of the screenwriters, Sheldon Lettich, who worked a lot with JCVD. He has funny stories about the real Frank Dukes, and what a con man that guy is. But anyways, man, yeah, Bloodsport, I can watch that anytime.
Yeah.
And it brings back all the memories of sitting in a theater as a kid, wanting to take karate because I saw that movie.
I can tell you that I did not see Bloodsport in the theater as a kid. I don't think my dad was a big martial arts movie kind of guy. Like, we would see stuff more like Navy SEALs or probably Delta Force and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't remember him really taking me to many Karate Man movies,
My mom took me to Karate Man movies.
Of course. Yeah. So what's your number 2 then?
So my number 2, I actually did not see until this year. And then I saw it and I said, this might be one of my all-time favorite movies, period. It's from 1985. It's called Thunder Alley. Jill Schoelen has a small role in it. Actually, she's the lead actress in the film. Thunder Alley stars Roger Wilson and Leif Garrett.
Oh,
and it's also got
Leif Garrett, man.
Clancy Brown is in it. It's one of his first movies Clancy Brown ever did. It is a rock and roll story. Actually, and then the other actor that's in it who plays Roger Wilson's the lead actor.
And not to be confused with 1967's Thunder Alley with Annette Funicello.
No. Definitely do not get it confused with that. But
Or Thunder Alley, the 1994 TV series with Ed Asner.
Yes, please do not do that either. There's another actor in it named Scott McGinnis who steals the show. He was in Secret Admirer. I think he was in 315, The Moment of Truth, that we broke down on Podcasting After Dark. The movie's about a rock and roll singer, guitar player who hooks up with Leif Garrett's band because of Scott McGinnis, who's like his best buddy. And Leif Garrett and like they go on the road and Clancy Brown is like their kind of roadie basically, and Jill Schoelen is the love interest to Roger Wilson's character. The music is awesome. I posted a bunch of it on $2 Late Fees Saturday soundtrack page on Instagram. It's so good. It's classic canon. It's got everything you want, if you know what I mean, Corey.
Nice.
You should check it out. It's really, really good. It's dare I say, one of the best canon films. There's just little things here and there that don't make it perfect, and that's canon in a nutshell. little things here and there that just don't make it like that Academy Award caliber type movie. But anyways, I love Thunder Alley. That's my number 2, and you know what my number 1 is. So
that's right.
Can I guess what your number 1 is?
Yeah, you probably can.
For 2 good reasons.
Yep.
One of them being Patrick Stewart, and of course the other one being what's that guy? Steve Railsback. Yes, that's Life Force. Would it be Life Force?
It would be Life Force, the movie that is famously Patrick Stewart's first on-screen kiss in a movie, and it's with Railsback. I love it. I love how that will always be a fact. But yes, Matilda May, unreal. Everything about it is unreal. And go back and listen. I say that it was like season 1. It was so early on that we did Life Force that sometimes I'm even hesitant to sort of like push people all the way back there. But go listen to season 1. Go listen to Life Force. We had a great time breaking that one down.
Yeah, that one was so much fun. And Life Force is a really great movie. There's just moments where it lags a little bit. It slows down. Yeah. I think it's like an hour and 41 minutes or something like that. So it like if it would just tighten a little bit more. But man, what a fun ride that movie is.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's classic canon. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. People are probably going to go, what about that movie? Yeah, it's great. These are our top 5. So what are your guys' top 5 canon movies? Go to our Instagram and interact with us. Don't go anywhere else. Just let's compress some of our social media doings.
Yeah.
Just go to Instagram, okay, guys? Great top 5 for you.
Yeah.
And I
you
agree
too,
with
buddy.
Thank you. Go-Go Boys is Go-Go Boys is a film that you guys should seek out because we need to hear the stories of these guys who made these movies.
But can I say it's probably not a complete picture? So go watch this and also Electric Boogaloo to get.
Yeah, you can get Electric Boogaloo at your bargain bin at a Walmart. So
and I think it's free on YouTube too, right? Like
it's free. It's free to watch on YouTube and everywhere. So. But I definitely watch both.
But I do feel like I got a bit more out of this as far as like their backstory. I guess, yeah, I think what I really enjoyed more about Go-Go Boys was seeing their early Tel Aviv stuff, seeing where they came from, what kind of, and because, I mean, that helps like to inform you of where they were going because I do believe that they wanted always to make, respectable films. But Lemon Popsicle was their breakout. And then they had a format of like, okay, well, we know what works now, and they kind of even remake it. And then but that being said, they don't follow a formula because every movie is so dramatically different. But I think overall, watch both. I very much enjoyed Electric Boogaloo, but if I could recommend one or the other, I think I like this one a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to note, too, that these guys were outside of the studio system in a time when we are fighting, to reform these studios because they suck the way they're being run.
Still do.
So, I think you guys go watch both. And again, Go-Go Boys is more of an intimate portrait of these two dreamers whose dreams came true for a little while. And one still continues to be.
Yeah. And one's unfortunately 6 feet under.
Yes. So he doesn't care what we say about him at this point. No, I do. This is my spirit from the grave coming back to tell you that was a great way of explaining, we don't talk about failures here, but we talk about the good things. And the good things we must talk about is Podcasting After Dark has a Patreon page that you should all check out. Go to patreon.com/Podcasting After Dark for the Carpenter Factor. I never worked with John Carpenter. I always wanted to, and then he I don't know. We could have made so many movies together, 100 film together. And go to patreon.com. Podcasting After Dark is for the Carpenter Factor, Wrap Up After Dark, the interviews After Dark that are behind the paywall. So much great stuff. And make sure that if you go on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating. Anything below 5 stars, just don't even do it. If you're going not to go, if you go on there saying this is
not good, we don't accept that.
No, we
just
don't accept
listen
that.
to
We
it.
don't accept that at all.
So just give us 5-star, and on Spotify you can leave comment now too, and give us thumbs up and all that good stuff. And go to our Instagram, Sleazy C, the king of sleaze. I thought I was the king of sleaze. What are you going to say next that I did not fill in blanks of?
I'm not going to try to do the Yoram, but I'm going to reiterate everything Menahem just said and say everything applies to $2 late fee as well. So swing on over to $2latefee.com, swing on over to patreon.com/$2 late fee. Check out the Instagram, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review on Spotify for those guys over there. Leave a comment and everything. And we've got big stuff coming with guys, it's coming, the crossover event, the pad $2 late fee crossover event. It's coming, the crossover that's everybody's wanted. Or it's coming, baby, the crossover, baby, it's coming. Do it for me, baby.
Like the Age of a Lightning Bolt, because they're gonna have not only the crossover event of the century is gonna happen, but there's also gonna be a little bit of wrestling with Territory Mox. Sleazy C is gonna join Paul London and Zach Schaefer on that show, baby, and it's gonna have a good old time. But I just want to say really quickly though that currently on $2 late fee they have the Ruskies episode. They're talking to Whip Hubley, relation to Season Hubley, yes, and you want to check that out because he says a lot of bad thing about Steven Seagal in one of the $2 question segment. Well, not bad, but not good, if you know what I'm saying.
Fantastic, fucking awesome. All right, guys and gals, thank you so much for joining us on the documentary series. Once we hit cut on this, Zach and I are going to start recording our Jodorowsky's Dune episode. So wait for that. That'll be coming soon. And our, what did we say it was? Augmentary. Terrible. Fucking
yes.
Terrible.
Augmented episodes of Podcasting After Dark.
Fucking terrible branding. All right, but as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side. For me, I'm already dead, so it's dark here. Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
I'm John, and I'm the host of Action Action. Every week, I'm joined by James.
Heyo.
And Dustin.
Hello.
And each week, we review, debate, and rank a different action movie.
We're creating the ultimate list of action movies.
From awful to awesome.
So if you want to hear 3 more white guys with beards talk about action movies.
And argue about where they belong on our list.
And decide you hate us because we made fun of your favorite movie.
Join us every Tuesday, and you can find us on your favorite podcatcher.
And Steven Seagal is a joke.
Hey everyone, co-host Corey here. I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Without you, Podcasting After Dark would not be possible. If you would like to help the show grow, please consider signing up at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. You can also support the show by purchasing one of our awesome t-shirt designs on our merch store at podcastingafterdark.com, or by picking up a copy of 7 Winters Alone by David Irons on paperback, hardback, or Kindle. Just search for 7 Winters Alone on Amazon or click on the link in the show notes. A free way to help out is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those reviews are huge for us and really helps get the show in front of new listeners. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support you've given us over these past few years. It really means the world to us.